Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Kenil Gale. The Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC, says some 25% of its fleet is out of service and it may not be allowed to purchase new buses until the year 2021. The JUTC appeared before Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriations PAAC Committee today. Amita Prasad Webb reports.
JUTC Managing Director Paul Abrahams says the company has not achieved the desired rollout of buses this year because of the aging fleet. So as the JUTC struggles to keep up with passenger load and demands, the company has reached out to the Finance Ministry for money to purchase parts and to maintain the buses which are still operational.
Because of a poor maintenance operation in the past, we are finding that a number of buses now are having issues, major issues, such as transmission and engines. So our function right now is to handle the easy repairs so we can at least have the fleet rolling to a comfortable position as we then target the major repairs. Our rollout at this present time, we have been able to achieve a 430 availability rollout. We still are short of that target of 452. We anticipate by hopefully December or January we should be up to the 450 region.
He argues that the company will need new rolling stock in a year, pointing out that there are a few number of buses in the fleet which can only be scheduled to run at certain times during the day.
So we run them out basically in the morning peak, we take them off during the day and run it back out in the evening peak, but they're not able to stay out all day. That is some of the buses.
Meanwhile, PAAC Chairman Mikhail Phillips raised concerns about the cost of the new buses. However, he conceded that a financially prudent decision has to be made, as the timeline for getting a new stock is not feasible, and continuously buying new parts to repair old buses is too costly.
Is it that we're going to maintain these buses that they have lived their useful life in many instances? May cost you twice as much to maintain these buses than if it is were that you are going to put new buses in the rolling stock. And I know that's a policy decision.
In the meantime, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Devon Rowe, says based on the revelations by the JUTC, the ministry will revisit the decision to not purchase more buses until 2021.
I think the JUTC, having already done its own fleet, a review of its fleet, and made some recommendations, ought to do the analysis, because as you rightly say, Mr. Chairman, there is the trade-off between purchasing new buses and keeping aging fleet running, and they do have a cost. They do have a cost in terms of the money that is required to keep them running.
For BATV News, I'm Amita Prasad Webb.
Meanwhile, the JUTC Managing Director has admitted that the company is overstaffed, which is costing it some $25 million a month in salary payments. Anthony Morgan has that story.
Paul Abrahams says the JUTC now has 2,250 employees, but it only needs 1,780. That's almost 500 more employees than what is needed to run the company's day-to-day operations. With about 300 acting and temporary positions now in the company, there's a need for rationalization to decide what to do with those posts.
We are doing a rationalization at this present time with the HR department as to look at what persons have been put elsewhere from their substantive posts and temporary persons had. We should be actually completing that rationalization by sometime next week, at which time representation will have to be made to the minister as to what we will have to happen to these additional persons that need to be removed from the JUTC.
The managing director says that the additional staff is costing the JUTC millions per month.
Approximately about 25 million per month in additional wages.
But despite being overstaffed, the company is still short of qualified engineers in the maintenance department.
The grade 1 mechanics are a high attrition. There are very favorable offerings to them abroad. We are starting our own training program, which we have requested from overseas assistants to come in and retrain. We set up a training facility, and we're now going to have persons from Europe come down to train our persons to continue training in the absence of when they leave. These suppliers will come in and give us 2 weeks, but there's not much that we can obtain in 2 weeks. So we are asking them now.
After we train them, do we bond them?
We have tried bonding them. We have not been successful.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
And Parliament has passed the Processed Food Amendment Act. The bill, which was piloted by Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries Minister Karl Samuda, will also see the amendment of the Processed Food Regulations Act. Leroy Hall tells us more.
In an effort to facilitate customs' automated system, the Processed Foods Bill will remove the requirement for export certificates. The automated system for Customs Data ASICUDA system was designed to transform the Jamaica Customs Agency into a paperless operation through the use of electronic documents. One of the main objectives of the system is to harmonize trade procedures and reduce trade barriers. That's why the amendment became necessary, as the Jamaica Customs Agency said its web-based system could not include the port-related procedure stipulated by the Bureau of Standards.
Both the JCA and the Bureau of Standards of Jamaica, BSJ, having consulted, have jointly recommended the removal of the provisions in the Act relating to requirements for export certificates.
Minister Samuda says the removal of the export certificate provisions will bring Jamaica in line with international best practices.
The removal of the export certificates provision will shorten the process for the export of processed food, constitute a positive step towards a more trade facilitatory regime, and bring Jamaica further in line with international best practices, which posit a risk-based approach towards production. This bill therefore seeks to amend the Processed Food Act and the Processed Food General Regulations to give effect to that decision.
Meanwhile, opposition spokesman on industry, investment and competitiveness, Peter Bunting, says his party is in support of the bill.
The idea of bringing our export procedures up to international best practice is desirable, and in fact it is really tidying up something that ideally should have been introduced simultaneously with the ASICUDA system, and therefore we really don't have any objection, and we support this bill. Thank you.
The bill will be sent to the Senate for its approval. For BATV News, I'm Leroy Hall.
Still to come, the IMF tells the region to brace for the economic impact of climate change. The details when you return. Welcome back. Jamaica is being warned to brace for more economic shocks as climate change takes a toll on the region. Angela Laidley has the details.
According to statistics gathered by the IMF's Regional Studies Division, temperatures in the Caribbean will get warmer, and that could impact productivity in low-income countries like Jamaica.
Temperature can affect growth in a number of ways. It can have a direct effect on productivity of workers. So for example, if we're looking at an industry that takes place outside, like construction, when it's hot, it can become so hot that workers have to stop working for a day. And if there's a heat wave, they might stop working for a week or 2 weeks or more than 2 weeks. And the more and more our planet warms, the more likely it is that we will have these heat waves that can last quite a long time and disrupt production and productivity.
The IMF economist also explained that countries like Jamaica will also experience lack of external investments as the economic shocks will be a disincentive.
Investment. It's possible the capital stocks will decrease because increases in temperature have a negative effect on growth in 1 year, in the year of the impact of the negative shock, and then people invest less in the following years, and this can accumulate and have a negative effect on growth over a longer period of time.
She pointed out that Jamaicans are among some 60% of the world's population, which will be affected by climate change.
I wanted to show you a distorted map of the world, where the area of each country is proportional to the current population of that country in the world. Currently, about 60% of the world lives in countries that will be negatively affected by climate change. And by the end of this century, this number is likely to increase to about 75% of the world. So the majority of the world's population will be negatively affected by climate change.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says geospatial technology has created a new economy in Jamaica, which the government is investing in. He says it's an untapped potential which can help to prevent economic pitfalls and encourage growth. Nordia Francis Williams explains.
Data is everything these days, and according to Prime Minister Andrew Holness, it's also a tool which will be used to grow the economy.
An important thing to note is that the evolution of GIS has created a new economy, an economy based on analytics of data. And government has to invest in this new economy.
He says, although the government has been using data in its operations, it has not yet moved to a place where that data is used to predict and prevent economic shocks.
Right now, we are utilizing the GIS information to do some amount of analysis. So we are able to answer sometimes why they happen and how. But we have not moved to the next step, which is to use that data in management so we can be ahead of and plan for and prevent or encourage.
The Prime Minister says the geospatial data which now exists is oftentimes stored in isolation of other related data, which can be used to enhance growth.
One of the things I want to encourage here is that we move as a government to standardize, to set standard operating procedures for accessing and describing data points in our geospatial systems. If nothing else happens as a result of this conference, and that does, we would have leaped forward 20 years in the utilization of geospatial information.
For BATV News, I'm Nordia Francis Williams.
Mayberry Investments Director Sushil Jain is dead. Mr. Jain died last evening after ailing for some time now. In a release today, Mayberry said Mr. Jain was the consummate professional, an astute businessman, and a great advisor. They said he possessed a wealth of knowledge and experience in business and financial management and was an integral member of the Mayberry Investments team, where he served as director for over 11 years. Mr. Jain is also being hailed as a stalwart of the Jamaican business community and a man of impeccable integrity. Sushil Jain is survived by his wife, his son, his daughter-in-law, and 2 grandchildren. Stay with us. Regional and international stories are up next. Welcome back. Time now for regional and international stories. Trinidad and Tobago's Tourism Minister Shamfa Kujo is calling for stakeholders in the hotel industry to become more innovative. Speaking at the launch of the Bricks Hotel, Minister Kujo said hoteliers must find ways to compete with others who provide accommodation. CNews Live's Ian Wason reports.
The ownership of Carlton Savannah has changed hands. The Carlton Savannah,
will be no more. Rising out of Carlton Savannah will now be Bricks, a fully locally owned hotel that, when opened, will bring 150 new rooms and 200 new jobs. The hotel will be owned by Superior Hotels, who are also responsible for the water park in Chagaramas, and another hotel, expected to begin construction in South Trinidad.
When these projects are completed and operational, by the end of 2018, first quarter 2019, we would have created hundreds of construction jobs and approximately 1,000 permanent jobs.
Tourism Minister Shamfa Kojo, remarking that tourism is the new oil, said hoteliers need to find new and unique ways to attract customers.
I listen to hoteliers, especially in Tobago, complain about accommodation occupancy rates, and Caribbean Airlines is saying, but we are flying people to Tobago. So if they are not staying with you, then where are they staying? What is it that you are going to do differently? What are we going to promise this customer so that they can get value for money, so that they could spend their monies at the hotels rather than at Airbnb or through HomeAway?
But how did Superior Hotels come up with the name Bricks? What does it mean?
In chemistry, sugar in solution is measured in degrees, bricks. In Trinidad and Tobago, human chemistry is nurtured at the bricks. Here we come together and exciting reactions are stimulated, connections between people create human bonds, business is conducted, ideas are shared, and friendships begin. The Bricks Hotel is human chemistry in action.
The chairman made it clear, Bricks is not here to compete with other hotels as they would be superior. Ian Rayson, C News.
American ginseng is thought to have a wide range of health benefits, such as lowering blood sugar levels and reducing stress. But picking the herb is illegal in Canada, where there are fears poaching is on the rise due to the high prices ginseng fetches in East Asia. More from Al Jazeera.
So over here, it's a very nice habitat. We can see butternuts.
On patrol not far from Canada's capital city, Ottawa, Jean-Francois Dubois is looking for wild American ginseng. It's an endangered species, and record prices for the plant in East Asia are attracting poachers. If Mr. Dubois finds any ginseng, he knows where to focus his surveillance.
We're using a lot of technologies, and that's what the poachers doesn't know. They may be walking in the forest, and there may be some cameras, live cameras, that will receive live pictures on our cell phones.
Conservation officers across Canada seize many kilos of illegal wild ginseng every year. Poachers can spend 5 years in jail. But with a global market worth more than $2 billion a year, illegal harvesting is getting more organized and difficult to police, just like the trade in the world's other endangered species.
Interpol estimates that wildlife crime is the fourth most lucrative crime out there. After illegal drugs, after human trafficking, after counterfeiting, the fourth most valuable is wildlife. This is big-time crime.
Canada's wild ginseng population is under threat, even though farmers in Ontario are legally growing what is essentially the same plant. In East Asian traditional medicine, wild ginseng is more desirable than its domestically grown cousin. That's not what scientists in Toronto have found, though. In clinical trials, researchers at St. Michael's Hospital have discovered farm ginseng has positive health impacts that the wild plant does not have.
We are very enthusiastic. We continue. We're now talking to growers. We want to make particular formula for diabetes, maybe for blood pressure, and we are very optimistic.
Jean-Francois Dubois even spends many of his weekends combing the woods for a plant that poachers have helped push to the brink of extinction. He has his eye firmly on the future.
Especially, I would like to someday come here with my son. He's now 2.5 years old, and maybe come back and say, you know, you can see here, there's wild ginseng, wild American ginseng, and it's here because we did something for it.
Canada's ginseng protector remains vigilant and committed to what is essentially a passion, not just his job. Daniel Lack, Al Jazeera, near Ottawa.
South Sudan is holding an international oil and power conference to deal with its fuel crisis. Petrol stations run dry on a daily basis, despite the country having billions of barrels of oil in reserves. More in this Al Jazeera report.
This may not seem the best way to prepare for exams, but Nyanthik Peter says it's the only way her brothers can study. She says fuel is too expensive for her family.
There's no power in the house, so we use candles. We can't pay for the fuel that is used to run the generator in our neighbourhood. Fuel is expensive and comes from the black market. It's cheaper to get candles. We use about 4 a day.
South Sudan has the largest oil reserve in Africa, according to experts, but it has no means of processing its own oil. Instead, it relies on its neighbor Sudan to do so. But years of war and low oil prices last year has damaged the economy. This has resulted in hard currency crisis, making it hard for traders to bring in fuel. Most suppliers now prefer to serve private sectors, leaving many stations in the country empty. Despite the shortage of fuel at petrol stations, you can find it being sold on the streets of Juba in recycled water bottles, but at a price, $8 a gallon, which is about 4 liters. That's nearly 10 times more than the official price of 78 cents at petrol stations. There are government subsidies on imported fuel, but because the black market is more profitable, subsidies, along with other issues, are contributing to the country's shortage.
The fuel shortage is because definitely we are subsidizing 86% of the fuel is being subsidized. That is one issue that we are facing. Every 3 months, I'll give them 30 million. Smuggling fuel out of the country. And there are people who are actually taking the fuel to the black market so that they make more money. And this is the work of the police and the national security to address it so that they stopped and arrest those who are actually doing illegal activities by trading with fuel.
Lawmakers have recently proposed lifting the fuel subsidies, but some analysts say if the government does this, the short-term impact will be damaging.
It could have an impact, a negative impact on low-income families, because the transport will skyrocket, although it is still very, very expensive now because the fuel is not available, but the subsidy at least keeps it down. And automatically the food items and other essential supplies may also increase in prices.
Nyanthik knows she can't afford the cost of fuel, but she hopes it doesn't soon extend to the one thing that lights her home at night and force her and her family to live in darkness. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Juba.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks comes up after the break. Welcome back. Time now for Talking Stocks. 51 stocks traded today, of which 23 advanced, 22 declined, and 6 traded firm. The main JSE index declined by 181 points to close at 271,722 points. The junior index advanced by 9 points to close at 2,911 points. Over 3 million units traded today, valued at more than $54 million on the Jamaican dollar market. And on the US dollar market, over 41,000 units traded, valued at over 9,000 US dollars. Jamaica Stock Exchange, with over 1 million units changing hands, accounted for 37% of the market volume. Carreras was second with over 600,000 units trading. Grace Kennedy accounted for more than 256,000 units, amounting to 6% of the market volume, which crossed the floor. Siboney Group was the top advancer, up 2 cents to close at 18 cents, followed by Jetcon Corporation, up 39 cents to close at $4.91, and Alaska Financial Services, up 25 cents to close at $4.49. The main decliners were T-Tech, down 96 cents to close at $6.04, followed by ISP Finance Services, losing $1.95 to close at $18, and the KLE Group, which went down 23 cents to close at $2.42. In foreign exchange trading, the US dollar ended the day selling for $128.58, while the Canadian sold for $103.43. The British pound closed the day at $168.53 on average. And that's all the news we have for you this evening. But before we go, a recap of our top story. The JUTC struggles to keep buses on the road while admitting that it has almost 500 more employees than it needs. Thanks for watching. For more content, please visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Kenil Gale. Pleasant viewing.